For 2 millennia, a question has echoed through history. What happened to thousands of Rome's finest soldiers who marched into the mists of Britain and were never seen again? This was no ordinary unit. This was Legio IX Hispana, the Ninth Legion. Battle-hardened, their eagle standard was a symbol of Roman power. And then, sometime in the 2nd century AD, they vanished from the records. No final battle was recorded. No honorable discharge noted. Just silence. In this video, we're going to sift through the ancient evidence and modern theories to unravel the most likely story behind their disappearance. We'll journey from the battlefields of Gaul with Julius Caesar to the blood-soaked earth of Britain during a native uprising, and into the harsh lands at the very edge of the Roman Empire. This is a detective story nearly 2,000 years in the making. The victim, a legion of over 5,000 men. The crime scene? The frontiers of history itself. Our job is to separate myth from fact, legend from logic, and piece together what really happened to the Ninth. Chapter 1. The Legend of the Ninth. To understand the weight of the Ninth's disappearance, you first have to understand what a legion was. It wasn't just a military unit. It was an institution with its own history, its own honors, and its own soul, embodied by its sacred eagle standard, the Aquila. Legions could be disgraced, disbanded, or destroyed, but for one to simply vanish was almost unthinkable. The story of the Ninth begins long before its fateful time in Britain. It was one of the oldest and most seasoned legions in the Roman army. Its legend was truly forged under the command of one of history's most famous generals, Julius Caesar. The Ninth was one of the veteran legions that served with Caesar during his grueling campaigns to conquer Gaul in 58 BC. A war that would reshape the face of Europe. They fought in the brutal battles that brought the Gallic tribes to heel, and Caesar himself mentions them in his commentaries, a testament to their role in his military machine. After Caesar's assassination, the legion found itself under the command of his heir, Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus. It was during this period, fighting in the rugged mountains of Spain, that the legion earned its enduring name, Hispana. The Cantabrian Wars were a brutal, decade-long struggle, and the Ninth was key to that victory. Hispana wasn't just a name. It was a badge of honor, proof of their toughness in one of the empire's most difficult campaigns. So when Emperor Claudius launched his audacious invasion of Britain in 43 AD, it was no surprise that Legio IX Hispana was on the list. They were dependable veterans, exactly the kind of soldiers you'd want for an invasion of a mysterious, hostile island on the very edge of the known world. To many Romans, Britain was a land of damp forests, strange druidic cults, and ferocious warriors. The Ninth was sent to tame it. And for years, they did just that. They helped secure the new province, pushing the boundaries of Roman control northward. They built forts and roads, eventually establishing their main fortress at Lindum Colonia, modern-day Lincoln. From there, they served as the vanguards of the Roman frontier, a bulwark against the unconquered tribes. They were a symbol of Roman dominance, a seasoned legion with a pedigree stretching back to Caesar himself. And that's what made their sudden, catastrophic failure all the more shocking. Chapter 2. The Setback, Boudicca's Fury. Before the Ninth Legion vanished, it was almost annihilated. This near destruction is a critical chapter in their story, a moment that both scarred them and proved their tenacity. It happened in AD 60 or 61, during one of the most famous rebellions in Roman history. The revolt of Boudicca, queen of the Iceni. The uprising was born of Roman arrogance and brutality. After the king of the Iceni died, local Roman officials ignored his will, seized his lands, had Boudicca publicly flogged, and assaulted her daughters. It was a humiliation that ignited a firestorm of fury. The Iceni and their allies rose up in a wave of vengeance. Their first target was the Roman colony of Caledonia, modern-day Colchester. The rebels fell upon it with merciless rage, burning it to the ground and slaughtering its people. News of the disaster reached the commander of the Ninth, Quintus Petilius Ceriolus. He immediately marched his legion south to relieve the city. It was a fatal mistake. Ceriolus seems to have underestimated the sheer scale of the rebellion and marched with only a portion of his legion. Boudicca's massive tribal army was waiting. The Roman historian Tacitus tells us the Ninth was ambushed on the march. Caught in the open, the Roman infantry was overwhelmed. They were disciplined soldiers, but they were swamped by sheer numbers. Tacitus reports that the entire infantry force of the relief column was wiped out. It was a massacre. Around 2,000 Roman legionaries were cut down. Only the commander, Cerealis, and his cavalry managed to escape and flee back to their fortress. The massacre sent shockwaves through the province. One of Rome's elite legions had been shattered. The ninth was so weakened that it had to be reinforced with thousands of soldiers from the Germanic provinces just to bring it back up to fighting strength, yet they recovered. The rebuilt ninth redeemed itself, eventually moving its base north to the new fortress of Ibericum, modern-day York, to guard the northern frontier. This disaster is a key part of their story. It shows they were vulnerable, but it also speaks to their resilience. They survived, rebuilt, and returned to the front. The memory of Boudicca's revolt would have been seared into the legion's soul. They knew better than anyone the price of failure on the British frontier. It was a lesson they would carry with them into the mists of the north, and into the heart of their own mystery. Chapter 3. The Vanishing Point. After recovering from the Boudiccan disaster, the 9th Legion resumed its duty as the guardian of the north. Their fortress at Ibericum became the main staging ground for campaigns into Caledonia, modern Scotland. We get glimpses of them from the historian Tacitus, whose father-in-law, Agricola, governed Britain in the late 1st century. During one of Agricola's northern campaigns in AD 82, the 9th again found itself in mortal danger. A coalition of Caledonian tribes launched a daring night attack on their camp, breaking through the defenses and sparking a desperate struggle in the dark. Only the timely arrival of Agricola's cavalry saved the 9th from being overrun. Once again, they had stared into the abyss and survived. After these campaigns, the historical record grows quiet. The 9th remained garrisoned at Ibericum, a formidable presence on the frontier. And it is here, in York, that we find the last definitive trace of the 9th Legion in Britain. It's not a dramatic battle report, it's a simple stone inscription. In 1864, a stone tablet was unearthed in York from a gateway of the legionary fortress. The inscription commemorates the rebuilding of the gate by the 9th Legion under the authority of Emperor Trajan. Based on the emperor's titles on the stone, it can be dated with remarkable precision to the year 108 AD. It reads, "The Emperor Caesar Nerva Trajan Augustus built this gate by the agency of the 9th Legion Hispana." This is the vanishing point. This stone is the last confirmed trace of Legio IX Hispana in Britain. After 108 AD, they disappear from all records in the province. When Emperor Hadrian visited Britain just 14 years later, in 122 AD, he brought a new legion with him, Legio VI Victrix, which took over the fortress at York. Soon after, construction began on Hadrian's Wall, a massive project involving thousands of soldiers. In the countless inscriptions they left behind, there is not a single mention of the 9th. It's as if they simply evaporated. A force that, at full strength, was around 5,400 men strong, a cornerstone of Rome's military in Britain, gone. What makes it even stranger is the silence of Roman historians. They weren't shy about detailing military disasters. But for the 9th, there's no official account. This silence is the heart of the mystery, a vacuum that has been filled with myth, legend, and speculation for centuries. What could make an entire legion disappear from the pages of history? The investigation begins now. With the 9th gone from the records, the case goes cold. For nearly 2,000 years, all we have are scattered clues and competing theories. Let's step into the role of historical detectives and examine the 3 most prominent theories, weighing the evidence for and against each. Chapter 4. Theory 1. Annihilation in Caledonia. This is the classic theory, the one that has captured the popular imagination for over a century. It's a dramatic romantic vision of a heroic last stand against overwhelming odds in the misty highlands of Scotland. The theory goes that sometime after 108 AD, the 9th Legion marched north from York into Caledonia and was utterly destroyed by the native tribes. The idea was first seriously proposed by the great 19th century historian Theodor Mommsen. He speculated that the legion was wiped out around 117 AD during a major uprising. For Mommsen, this supposed disaster was the direct reason Emperor Hadrian visited Britain in 122 AD and decided to build his famous wall. The wall, in this version of events, wasn't just a border. It was a scar, a concrete admission that the lands to the north were untamable. This theory is compelling. The northern frontier was a notoriously violent place, and the 9th had already nearly been destroyed there twice. Plus, we have a tantalizing clue from the Roman orator Phano, who, writing in the 160s AD, consoled Emperor Marcus Aurelius by reminding him of past disasters, stating what great numbers of soldiers were killed by the Jews, and what great numbers by the Britons during Hadrian's reign. But the theory's biggest champion wasn't a historian, but a novelist. Rosemary Sutcliffe's 1954 classic, The Eagle of the Ninth, cemented the idea of a Scottish demise in the public consciousness. Her powerful story of a young Roman officer searching for the legion's lost eagle created an enduring myth that, for generations, became the definitive version of the story. The discovery of a bronze Roman eagle in Silchester in 1866 added more fuel to the fictional fire, though most archaeologists today believe it was not a legionary standard. So what's the problem with this epic tale? The evidence. Or more accurately, the complete lack of it. For a legion of 5,000 men to be wiped out, there should be a massive battle site somewhere. We're talking Roman armor, weapons, and personal effects. Most importantly, there would be bodies. Yet, despite decades of extensive archaeology in northern England and Scotland, nothing has ever been found. No battlefield, no lost eagle, no mass grave. The archaeological record is completely silent. This lack of physical evidence is the single greatest argument against the theory. For many modern historians, this powerful story is a myth, and our investigation must turn to where the evidence does lead. Chapter 5. Theory 2, Transfer to the Continent and the Rhine-Danube Solution. As the annihilated in Britain theory fell out of favor, a new, more sober explanation emerged, based on compelling finds far from British shores. This theory proposes that the Ninth wasn't destroyed in Britain at all, but was simply transferred to the European continents sometime after 108 AD, its end. If it happened later along the Rhine or Danube frontiers. The crucial evidence comes from the city of Nijmegen in the Netherlands. During excavations there, archaeologists discovered tiles and pottery stamped with the insignia of Legio IX Hispana. Crucially, archaeologists date these finds to a period after the legion's last appearance in Britain, around AD 120. Even more telling, inscriptions have been found recording the careers of two senior officers of the Ninth, who were active around this time and went on to have long, distinguished careers. It's highly unlikely these men would have continued on to prestigious posts if their entire legion had been disgracefully wiped out. Their presence suggests the legion's command structure was intact and that the Ninth, or a large part of it, was operating as a functional unit on the continent after it left Britain. This evidence changes everything. It suggests the Ninth wasn't lost. It was just redeployed, a routine military procedure. So if they weren't destroyed in Britain, what happened? This leads to the idea of an administrative death. Instead of a single catastrophic end, the legion may have simply withered away. Stationed on the fiercely contested Rhine or Danube frontiers, the legion could have suffered heavy casualties in a series of grueling campaigns. A legion weakened by constant fighting might eventually be deemed combat ineffective. Its remaining soldiers would be drafted into other legions as replacements, and the legion's name and number would be struck from the military rolls. It wouldn't be destroyed but disassembled. This theory is less dramatic, but it's supported by the Nijmegen evidence and fits with standard Roman military practice. The legion didn't vanish into the mist. It was transferred, bled weak in frontier fighting, and quietly disbanded. It's a bureaucratic end, not a heroic one. However, this theory isn't universally accepted, and the transfer opens up another, even more violent possibility for the legion's final chapter. Chapter 6. Theory 3. Destruction in the East. If we accept that the Ninth left Britain and was stationed on the Rhine, this opens up the whole map of the Roman Empire for its final deployment. A third major theory suggests the legion was sent to the volatile eastern provinces and was destroyed there. The first possibility is the Bar Kokhba revolt in Judea. This uprising, from 132 to 136 AD, was the last and most devastating of the Jewish-Roman wars. The historian Cassius Dio records that the Roman army suffered enormous casualties during the conflict. We know that another legion, the 22 Dioteriana, disappears from the record during this war, widely believed to have been annihilated. Proponents of this theory suggest the Ninth may have been transferred to Judea and met the same fate. An annihilation so brutal that Roman authorities, embarrassed by the loss, chose to erase it from the official histories. It fits the timeline and would account for the heavy Roman losses mentioned by Fronto. The second possibility lies a generation later. The Parthian War of 161 to 166 AD. At the start of this war, the Parthian army ambushed and heavily defeated a Roman legion at Elegeia in Armenia. Cassius Dio mentions the disaster, but, frustratingly, doesn't name the legion that was lost. Some scholars have nominated the Ninth as the victim. But the Eastern theory has its own problems. Just like the Scotland theory, there is a glaring lack of direct evidence. There are no inscriptions, no tombstones, no records of any kind that definitively place the Ninth Legion in the East during these conflicts. The connection is purely circumstantial. If the Ninth was destroyed in 161 AD, that's over 40 years after its last firm record in Nijmegen. It seems unlikely a legion could serve for 4 decades without leaving a single trace. We are left with a series of tantalizing but unproven possibilities. The Scottish theory has a great story but no evidence. The Rhine theory has evidence but lacks a dramatic ending. The Eastern theory provides a dramatic ending but lacks any direct proof. We've looked at the clues and the main suspects. Annihilation in Scotland, a slow decline on the Rhine, or a catastrophic end in the East. So, I'll turn the investigation over to you. Based on the evidence, which theory do you find most compelling? Let me know your verdict in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this deep dive into one of history's greatest unsolved cases, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation. Conclusion: the verdict, an enduring mystery. So, what really happened to the lost Ninth Legion? After sifting through the evidence and weighing the theories, the final verdict has to be uncertain. The fate of Legio IX Hispana remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the ancient world. The romantic tale of annihilation in Caledonia seems to be just that, a story. The complete lack of archaeological evidence makes a single, legion-destroying battle in Britain highly improbable. The evidence from Nijmegen strongly suggests the legion was transferred to the continent, making a gradual decline through attrition, the Rhine-Danube solution, a very plausible, if undramatic, scenario. The theories of destruction in the East offer the kind of catastrophic end that would justify a legion vanishing from the records, but they suffer from a total lack of direct evidence. Perhaps the truth is a combination of these theories. A legion transferred from Britain, weakened on the Rhine, and whose final remnants were destroyed in a battle in the East that went unrecorded. We may never know for certain. But the story of the Ninth Legion is more than just a historical whodunit. Its enduring mystery tells us something fundamental about the Roman Empire. It reminds us that even for the greatest empire of the ancient world, there were limits to its power. There were forests its legions could not tame and enemies they could not always conquer. The silence surrounding the fate of the Ninth speaks volumes about the violent, precarious nature of life on the Roman frontier. A legion that had served Caesar could, in the end, be swallowed by the vastness of the world it sought to control, its story fading until only the question remained. The Ninth Legion is not remembered for its final victory, but for its ultimate mystery. And perhaps that's why its story continues to fascinate us, 2,000 years later. It's a stark reminder that history isn't always a neat narrative. Sometimes the pages are torn out, and sometimes thousands of Rome's finest soldiers simply march into the fog of the past, leaving us with nothing but a legend.